We have a pretty select group of archers from all over the United States with us today. I'd like to introduce them first. My name is Brandon Reyes. I'm from T.R.U Ball Release and AXCEL Sights, the Director of Marketing, also a professional shooter. And my job is basically to find guys like these to represent our products. And I think we have a pretty good team, not only domestically but internationally. And first of all, I'd like to introduce to my far left, Jake Kaminski. He's a member of the USA Archery team and 2012 silver medalist at the London Olympic Games. Next, right here to my direct left is Mr. Reo Wilde. From Pocatello, Idaho. He is a 3-time Vegas champion, which is probably, as you all know, one of the most prestigious target archery tournaments in the world. To my direct right, Mr. Dan McCarthy from Wisconsin. Dan is a well-renowned 3D archer, former world champion in ASA, and as you know, that's one of the most prestigious 3D tournaments on the tour. And then my far right, Mr. Jesse Broadwater. He's a 7-time NFAA outdoor national champion and also a 2-time Vegas champion. So I'd like to first of all thank all of them for being here this morning at 7:15 and sharing with you some of their expertise in not only the target and 3D field, but fields that cover, you know, most hunters out there that make everybody and make archery better. So thanks to all of them, and thanks to you, because we have a great crowd. It seems like we are very lucky with these seminars that we put on. You know, in Vegas the last 2 years we've done a seminar and had, you know, approaching 300 people. So we're glad to be able to share that information with you, and glad that you were able to get up this morning early and join us before the show starts. So thank you for that. We're going to jump right into it. Today we're covering information on mastering and tricks, and we're sharing information on sights. And the guys have information as far as leveling and tricks that they use that help them in the recurve field with Jake and in the compound field with the rest of the panel. So first of all, we're going to start out with the compound sight, and then we're going to go into the tournament recurve setup and some tricks to the trade there, the movable hunting sight, and then a fixed pin hunting sight, things that will make, you know, dealers, people behind the counter, and everybody more successful. So first of all, I'm going to ask Reo and Dan probably right off the bat here to give us some information on explaining the tournament sight, if you're not familiar with it, and first, second axis, third axis leveling, and the importance of you know, all of those and how that translates to accuracy and happy customers. You want to start?
I don't know how into details I'm going to really go, but the first thing I would say in sights is I pick a good one. I mean, I've shot a bunch of different ones that have the availability for easy setup, easy adjustment. I find a device to use it to level, mostly mount onto it, work on my first axis with the sight to make sure the bar is all level, get the main part of the sight level. I mean, that to me is the number one thing, and I will, when I get it done, run the sight all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom to make sure it's still level, because in the past, when the quality wasn't as good with a lot of sights, you'd find that if you ran one at the top or the bottom, it still wasn't level when you got there. So you'd have to figure out ways to make it right. Then I'll work on my second axis to get the level right, so I can check that. And then with the same type device, I make sure I have one that I can run up and down and check angles. And it's funny to me to talk about that because, you know, I mean, shooting field archery, you see a lot of that, you understand that a lot more. But in hunting, I mean, it kind of carries over. I had a buddy 2 years ago that just he'd bought a cheap hunting sight with none of the leveling deals on it, drew up on a moose at about 30 yards, down the hill, pretty steep, shot way off on him. And not to really, had never thought about, you know, leveling and axes and all that stuff. And Come to find out, that's exactly what his problem was on that moose, and he shot and lost the moose. So to me, a lot of what we come from target sites feed into my hunting sites and everything else. So once I got that set, the third axis would go down, check it again. Then I'll put it on my bow, get me a vise, make sure the bow's level, and check it all there again. And that to me sounds like a lot of monotony and a lot of everything else, but when you're wanting and you're putting out, for me, shooting for thousands of dollars at a big event or a tournament you may only get one chance at to win, the extra work's worth it. And the same thing to me, it's like a hunt of a lifetime. This buddy of mine drew a once-in-a-lifetime moose tag in Idaho, and so, maybe he didn't get the moose that he wanted that time because he just didn't have the right equipment and have it set up right. So to me, that's a big part of tournament sites.
Yeah, I can't add a whole lot other than I definitely like the carbon bars on these, on the new achieves and stuff. It definitely helps having the strength there and the rigidity there. You don't have to worry about it bending. Some of the things I would like to add, I can't stress really enough how important it is to get your sight properly leveled. People spend countless hours, practicing or tinkering with their bows, and really they don't take the time to work on their sight. And if your sight's not right, you're going to be, you might be dead on at 20 and inch and a half right or 2 inches right at 60 or 50. And people don't really take the time to really level out their bars. The only thing differently that I probably do, other than maybe what Reo talked about, is I don't really trust a level too much, because just the bubbles and levels are pretty crappy. If you buy 100 of them and throw them on a table or something, you're gonna get different readouts. So I use plumb bobs a lot, and so I'll actually set my bow up in a vise. I'll hang a plumb bob off of it, and I'll level everything off of that, and then from there I'll plumb up my sight bar, my first axis, which is this bar here, and then from there I'll set my bubble in the center, and then from there actually I shoot in my third axis. I don't really trust the devices that are out there. There's some that'll get you in the ballpark, but really there's not a whole lot of them out there that'll do exactly what your bow will do dynamically when you draw it back and shoot it. You still want to shoot that and not really rely on a specific leveling device. Some of the other cool features about this sight is your the quick slide. Some tournaments it's not really important, but this one definitely has really good positive locking. So you can use a quick slide and not really worry about it moving. Some of the other ones you have to re-lock down and stuff. Definitely like that. And like Reo said, pick good quality, because I think all of us have shot long enough to have had plenty of problems in the past. And nothing can be really as frustrating as have problems with your sight. But that's really, I guess, pretty as detailed as we need to get.
I want to ask one question because I know it's important. And, some of our competitors don't necessarily have the ability to set a first axis. So I want to ask Jesse, how important is it to have a first axis? And on our site and on multiple sites on the market today, there are first axis leveling capabilities. And if it's not there, what kind of problems could you look at and experience difficulty with not having a first axis?
Right. Yeah. First axis is in relation to your bow is important, and all the adjustments on these sites are easy to use. And once you lock them down, they don't move on you. A lot of other sites when you have it loose a little bit and you get it adjusted, right where you want it, you lock it down and it moves. You got to loosen it back up, relock it down. That's one thing I like about these sites is, you don't have that. You get it where you want it, you lock it down and it stays put. But the second axis in relation to the third axis is pretty important, I think. You want to have your second axis, which is your scope housing or whatever that's coming off of your sliding mount here, exactly perpendicular to your first axis. And if that's not, exactly right, you're going to be shooting, as you sight in at, say, 20 yards, move back to 80, you're going to be hitting left and right at those distances. So having that exactly perpendicular to the first axis is very important. And then once you get that set, it really doesn't matter if you have your first axis, your elevation bar level to your bow or what. I mean, you can level it to your natural cant. If you're a person that, you know, draws back and, you know, you're always fighting your bubble one way or the other, and you always feel like you have to, you know, cant your bow to get your bubble in the middle, well, you can adjust this elevation bar for your natural cant, where it's when you draw back, your bubble's right in the middle and you're good to go, as long as, like I said, your second axis is exactly perpendicular to the first axis. But yeah, I mean, like I said, all the adjustments on here are super easy to use, and they stay put when you lock them down. That's one of the best things. I mean, the sights hold their zero very good. I mean, a lot of sights will have, you know, backlash, and I've never found that with these sights. I mean, once you set it, I mean, you can shoot it 100 times, go back and look, and it never moved off your mark. You know, your left and right windage is good and tight. You know, you don't have no rattles with it. So, you know, I'm very impressed with the sight, and you know, you get all those features in a package that's, you know, much lighter than anyone else's out there. So I'm really happy with mine.
Okay, I'm going to just kind of shift gears towards Jake now, and I want him to explain to you a little bit of the differences of the compound and the recurve sight. What looks different, what works different, and also if you could kind of give us some information on counting the clicks, because I know a lot of recurvers count the number of clicks that they use, and it's very important to have those scales that are engraved on the side of it deadly accurate. So I'm going to have him explain a little bit of the term of recurve for you.
Sure. So it's a little bit different than shooting with a compound. With a compound, you want to have your first axis pretty much square with your bow, which is important, or like Jesse said, your natural cant. Now with a recurve, yes, you can do that if you have no natural cant, but because we don't have bubbles, as opposed to constantly fighting, okay, is my bow square with the horizon? Okay, now it is, and then it's seeing it drift and fighting it back. I just set it up to my natural cant. I've had plenty of compound shooters come up to me and say, why don't you square your sight? It's obviously way off on your bow. Well, sure, my sight actually looks like this when I'm shooting I shoot right-handed, so it's actually, if I was facing my bow towards you, it's like this on my bow, but that's because when I can't this direction, so when I can't this direction, so then the sight becomes level. Now, most of you guys are all compound shooters, and you know, if you're running a shop or whatever, if you got a recurve shooter that comes in, there's nothing more frustrating than a recurve shooter. Go shoot 20 yards and then go shoot 90 meters and have to move my sight left and right. Tons of youth have to do this because they don't have their sight set up properly. So about this sight, I worked with them to actually make the holes in the first axis a little bit bigger, and they're bigger than anyone else's, and you have so much more movement and adjustability on this sight than any other sight on the market, which is important because I have actually quite a bit of a cant, but it's not a big deal because that's natural for me and it always stays level. So I have the ability to actually level my first axis to allow me to cant and still hit in the center at 20 meters, 100 yards, doesn't matter what the difference is or distance is. If I move my sight up and down, it's square to my cant. Now, how do you do that? You hang a plumb bob off a target at blank bail, so up close, at a very close distance, less than 3 meters, 3 yards, whatever. So your stabilizer is just off the target, basically. And you have your archer run their sight all the way up to the very top, aim at the string, and then move it all the way to the bottom, but make sure they can still get clear of their arrow. So not all the way down, but as low as they can go, aim at that string and shoot an arrow again. Now, if the arrows are different distances or on either side of the string, you want to adjust their first axis to their natural cant. So as they're shooting at the very top or the very bottom, it's going to be in the center. Does that make sense? So it's a really extremely easy way to do it. You can shoot it in as well, but I've taken it up to close blank bail distance, set it, and it's never been off for me. It is definitely a little bit more critical because, I mean, for us, we shoot 70 meters. These guys only shoot 50 meters in the FIDA stuff or World Archery stuff. So when I go from 20 yards or 18 meters, which is our indoor distance, and then go outside to 70 meters, I have a lot further to go back, and that allows me or that requires me to tune my sight level more precisely than these guys do. I don't have a bubble, so I don't know what is square. So I'm stressing the fact that you really have to set it to their natural cam, because you definitely want to make sure your customers are happy and not frustrated, especially with, this site. A couple things about it is definitely it is the lightest sight in the market, which is a big thing for a lot of youth and recurve shooters. The clicks are the finest, which is really important. So that is something I really enjoy. But then we also have the lock as well. I've never used the lock when I grew up because we didn't have them, so I don't shoot the AXCEL, I just shoot the RX. That's the model name of the site. Yeah, as far as the counting the clicks goes, it's important because if I were to go to a tournament and we shoot 72 arrows for our ranking round, if I'm shooting halfway through the tournament, somebody knocks over my bow, and I see it, I know, okay, well, I see my sight pin is bent or something is bent, and something's not right. Well, I can shoot that first arrow, and if I shoot a high 6 or a high 7, I know about how many clicks I need to move my arrow at that distance that I'm shooting. So 70 meters to move my arrows from the, say, like top of the 9 ring. So the 9 ring is about 6 inches away from the center of the target. If I have to move it from there to get it in the middle, I got to move it about 12 clicks, 13 clicks, give or take. So I suggest that move your sight, move it off on purpose, and then count how many clips it takes to get back. And you can actually, you look at a scope on a rifle, they all say at 100 yards, 3 clicks is a half an inch or something like that. So I encourage you to do that the same with your archery sight as well, because it'll allow you to bring everything back in quicker and adjust in quicker. So something else that Jesse was kind of touched on with this that's really nice is not only the backlash that has basically none, but when you go to mount your actual scope on the sight, and then you mount the sight on your bow, it is so accurate and so repeatable that I've never had to move my sight left or right or up and down off of my marks. If I go I can take my sight completely off and apart, put it back together, put it on my bow, and it basically hits the same hole at any distance, which you really don't find in any other sight. So it's definitely nice features.
So to clarify, the main differences between the tournament and recurve, big difference is there's no level bubble. So, what we're used to looking at, whether it's a hunting sight or a target sight, the recurve archer doesn't have. So it's a big, I give them a lot of credit because it takes a lot of practice and a lot of tuning to get to know, exactly if they're level or not. And then also no second and third axis. So,
Which we don't need.
Which they don't need, right.
Because it's automatic, the torque load is directional for us. It doesn't twist the riser like it does for a compound.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna, I think that covers tournament, recurve, pretty good. And just so you know, I will have, I'm gonna try to leave as much time at the end of this so you can ask specific questions, because I know it's important, and it's a lot easier for us to direct, because you may have the same question as somebody over here, and it's important, so we're gonna save plenty of time for that. And I'm gonna move right into the movable hunting sight. And this is new for us this year, so I'm going to try to talk, a lot about that myself. A lot of these sites, the guys have just seen images or some videos that we've made over the last, couple of months in releasing this new product. But essentially, the movable hunting sight that we have come out with this year is called an AccuTouch. And we have pro versions and direct mount versions, just like we do our ArmorTech. And this essentially is what I would call a hybrid sight. It's not a tournament sight, yet it can be used for that. And it's basically a hunting sight, tournament sight cross. But it has all the capability of first, second, third axis leveling, and every bit as accurate as a high-end target sight. So, for lack of a better description, it's kind of a hybrid. It can do anything type sight. So just like the target sight, we have a first axis which is important because some of the competitors that have this type of sight do not have. And we've already expressed the importance of having a first axis and what it can do to make the archer a better shot, especially at longer distances. So our first axis is located here on the back of the bar, and there's 2 screws that you can pivot the head to get it in position, whether you're leveling to a bowstring, whether you're leveling to a riser, whatever your choice is. And that may be a question you want to ask the guys, is what do you prefer? I level mine to a bowstring, but these guys may have a different opinion on that. And then we've got the second and third axis built right into the head of the sight, much like our second and third axis removable block that is on the target sight. And this allows you to pivot the scope in and out this way for second axis, and then third axis as well. I'm sorry, I had that backwards. Second this way, and then third axis this way for up and downhill shooting. But all those options are there for you to set in the tournament or hunting movable sight that we have just come out with. Setting yardages, it's important to select a sight tape that fits your bow. And what we have done and what the industry has done is included a selection of sight tapes that will cover a wide range of archers. And I know our models start at around 250 feet a second and conclude around 330 feet a second, which covers about 98% of the archers or hunters out there for whatever application they're going to use, whether it be hunting, 3D, target, whatever. So that should be covered, and that is included in every package. So essentially, there's numerous ways that you can select a proper sight tape. The way we suggest, and I've got some handouts that I've put on the tables that explain the process that we have decided to disclose to you all, and that is selecting whatever distance you feel comfortable in shooting. Whether if you're going to have a 50-yard max, you may want to set a 20 and 40-yard pin, and then go back and select a sight scale that matches the 20 and 40-yard pin. If you're going to shoot a tournament that requires you to shoot 100 yards or 80 yards, then you may want to sight in at 30 and 60, or get a good gap there so you can select the proper sight scale. And like I said, those are all included. And this sight will come with a blank white scale on it. So what that allows you to do is to, mount your sight to your bow, put your bow in your vise, get your first, second, third axis leveled, and then begin shooting it. And what I would do, is select that 20 or 30 yard mark and that 50 or 60 yard mark, sight it in real good to where you're comfortable, and then when you get that yardage determined, make a mark on that blank white tape that's coming on the sight, and then go back and select, once you get your gap, go back and select the proper sight tape that fits you. And then always go back and, if you're gonna shoot 80 yards and you actually didn't sight in at 80 yards, be sure, and check 80, check your 30 and 50 to make sure that all the lines marked on the sight scale match up. So that's one, one way of selecting the proper sight tape. And that can be done with a tournament sight, that can be done with, a hybrid sight, anybody's sight, in selecting the proper sight tape. Advantages and disadvantages of this sight. This is, like I said and mentioned earlier, this is our first time jumping into this type of market with a single pin slider. And, we have used, a scope that you see on some of these guys' sights and worldwide on some of the best target shooters in the world on our hunting site. It's the same application, it's the same style ring pin that is used all across the board. So it's not like, there's any type of skimping. We kind of went to the top, and you're getting that for your customers at a great price, for whatever application they want to use it, whether it's 3D or hunting. In first designing this site, we anticipated that it could be an all-over site, and that's what we've got. And we've been able to price it right for you guys, and also keep the weight down to where anybody can use it and not feel like it's a load on their bow. We've also incorporated our advanced composite material carbon bar on the Pro version. So there again, you're getting the strength and durability of the carbon bar that is again on our target site on this new hybrid site. The direct mount models are much like our ArmorTech, so it's kind of a cross of our lines, and a lot of the same parts resemble the parts of one or the other, whether it's our ArmorTech hunting site or the target site. So that kind of covers some of the information. One of the biggest features, and I urge you all to come and visit the booth, because I don't want to spend all day talking about a new site, but some of the features that are on here you're not going to find on any other site, and it's a great crossover between the what we call the best of both worlds, because you can actually have the ability to set these little clicks on this site that are called AccuClicks to resemble a sight pin on a site. And I've put some brochures on the table, and you want to be sure and check it out in the booth. But it comes with 6 AccuClicks on each site, and you can set those sites to at any determined distance, determined by you, to where it's like a quick access or a quick reference to a certain distance, whatever you feel comfortable, whether it's every 5-yard increments, and you want to start at 20 yards, or every 10-yard increments like I have on mine, and I start at 20 yards and go all the way to whatever I want, because you can buy additional AccuClicks to set marks all the way up to however far you can reach on your site. So it's a cool feature. You'll want to check it out. And I want to kind of get back to the guys here and let them give you more information as well. And I want to quickly touch, before I do that, on our fixed pin hunting site, because it's a little bit different than our other models. It has a second and third axis capability, which is just as good as most of our competitors out there. But the direct mount hunting site has the only ability to do second and third axis, and we also have a Pro model of this as well, which does have a first axis, first, second, and third axis. But as far as leveling, it's the same as anything else. It's the same as the guys have described to you on any of the other sites, and so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But it's there for all of you as far as being able to level all access on all of our sites. And I think it's important that you stress that to your customers, or you stress that to the shooters that come into your shops, because in turn it's going to make them better shots, and the happier they are, the happier you are, and you can move on to the next customer. But I'm going to kind of open up the floor, because I know there's a lot of questions, and whether it's site specific or not, I'd like for you guys to ask questions and get information from these guys, because that's why they're here. And also, I want to remind you, before everybody leaves this morning, we'll be doing another seminar with the same panel tomorrow, and we will be covering some very important, very cool information on shooting and more release side of the industry, and what these guys use and what has made them better. So, and also Jake will be giving us some information on shooting with fingers as well, because we know not everybody shoots with a release aid, and there's some information that he can share that may help you with shooting fingers, whether it's recurve, traditional, or with a compound. So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Your tapes, are they waterproof? They little tapes, are they waterproof?
Yes, the tapes that are coming with the site, the gentleman asked if they're waterproof, and they are made out of a water-resistant material, and the marks are not going to run. I use mine in Montana this year hunting, and it rains there a lot, and it didn't have no problems at all. And we were carrying our equipment through a lot of stuff to, up and down mountains and all over the place, and I didn't have any problems at all. But likewise, I've shot to 3D outside a lot, and no problem as well. But yeah, all of them can be cuts. We got specific guide marks on the sight scales to where it makes it easy to where you can cut them out real easy and they'll fit exactly on your sight. There's no guessing. You're not going to have anything hanging over the edge of the aluminum to kind of let water in. So those guide marks are very important, I think, in getting your sight scale just right. Another question? Yes, sir.
This is for Jake. Hey, I have a lot of Joanne shooters, a ton of them. And we're throwing them out on unmarked yardage. Do you have any simple tricks? Because I've got young kids for yardage, cheating yardage, range finding. Any way to explain it easier than what I'm trying to do?
As far as what targets you shoot on? Are you trying to target face or animals? Both?
Both, yeah. Anything that can help my kids. I mean, that is such a hard deal out in the field to try to teach it.
Well, I can explain the target one a little bit, and then I'm sure Dan probably could explain the other ones a little bit better, shooting a little bit more 3D, because
Everybody else knows how to cheat at judging as animals.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys can tell me.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I don't know. There's a couple ways that I've learned to do it. You can just have them, if you have a set target face that is out, like it's always the same target face, but it's at a random distance, make them, or like hold a class or something where they say, okay, we're gonna find out how to judge yardage with our sight pin. And you can actually use your sight pin as a gauge on the target. Okay, so have them stand at 10 yards, hold their sight pin up and say, okay, how many colors does it cover? And then go back to 20 yards. Okay, how many colors does it cover? Go back to 30 and so on. And then that way they can learn how to judge by using their sight pin as a reference gauge on the target. So they say, okay, well, it covers 50% of the target. That is 23 yards or something like that, okay?
And that varies also because the yardage, say you're shooting at 30 meters, the face is a different size than at 90 meters.
Yeah, it will be different. Faces could be different at different distances. So you would like to, try to familiarize them which targets are at which distances. So if you say, okay, the 20 centimeter face is between 10 and 15 meters. So then they say, well, 10 and 15, I can narrow that down. Yeah, no, and then you go, okay, well, the 80 centimeter face, that's anywhere from 30 meters to 55 meters. So they know, okay, well, it looks really, that looks like 20 yards, but then they say, wait a minute, that's an 80 centimeter face, it has to be 30 if it's really close. Then there's a couple things where you can go, okay, well, 10 yards, I know what 10 yards looks like, that's from me to you, so, okay, what's another 10 yards past that, and another, oh, that's not another 10, that's 37 yards, something like that. That's another quick, easy way to do it.
Sliding your bar in and out?
No, I definitely try to avoid at all costs sliding the bar in and out, because as you slide the bar in and out, it changes your sight picture, but it will also it can easily change your left and right. With youth bows and youth model stuff, they're gonna have very slow speeds. So as you move the sight bar in, your sight pin comes up. So you actually get more clearance from over the arrow. So if you can, I would recommend setting the bar to as far in as they need, that they're gonna shoot the furthest distance to still get clearance on their arrow with their sight pin. And then leave it there and then sight into that. For me...
You don't slide your bar in and out to judge yardage?
No, definitely not.
Never.
No, I mean, once I get the bar set, I let that stay. When I am setting my sight pin, because I really want a specific picture that I'm looking at to tell me what yards I'm at, and I will move my sight pin in and out, but once I figure out and find whatever my gauge looks like on a target, once I figure out what I want, I set it to that and then leave it there and then sight into that. So yes, I do adjust it to make it work, but then I leave it there. It's not like I set it at different distances in and out for different targets. Yeah, I mean, that's basically all I can talk about. I don't do very much unmarked yardage, and then what I do unmarked, I do have a system that I've really gotten down by doing what I told you, going out and just framing it on the target, picking it out. Problem with that is you have to hold really steady, and it's difficult to do with a recurve when you're holding 50 pounds back, you know. So.
Next question. Yes, sir.
I've got one kind of about leveling your, I guess, first axis the first thing you're gonna do. So I know there's all these different risers on the market. Some have a square place to put a level, some don't. But I always feel like you're not gonna level to your riser because your bowstring is what matters. Is that true in most cases? Based off of your bowstring. So.
Jesse?
Sure. Like I said before, the first axis really doesn't have to be level, you know, to your bow or your bowstring. What you want to do, like I said, is get your second axis exactly perpendicular to your first axis, and you can do that at rest. You know, just level and make sure your bubble in your aperture is level to, you know, your first axis. Put a little level on there. Make sure that both the bubbles match. And then what I would have, you know, your customer do is go over and you know, and you can, you know, as a, you know, just as a starting point, let go off the string. I would just go off the string as a starting point, match your elevation bar to your string. And then what I would do is have the customer go over and just draw his bow back, you know, with his eyes shut, let him settle in for a couple seconds, and then you get behind him and look to see where his bubble's at, and then, you know, see where he needs it moved to. Have him draw it a few times and do that. See if it keeps coming up in the same spot. You know, say he's canting a half a bubble to the right or something like every time. You know, watch that, and then, you know, loosen up the 2 screws, adjust his, you know, the elevation bar, and then lock it down. And then that way he's, you know, like I say, he's not fighting it. And there's other, you know, if he's using a counterbalance, you can kind of offset some of that too. But on a typical hunting setup, you know, you're not going to have, you know, too much counterbalance stabilizers to work with. So I would get it to where he's most natural, to where, you know, when he's out there and, you know, he just draws up, he doesn't have to really think about it and think, oh man, okay, I gotta remember to cant my bow a little bit to the left, get the bubble in the middle. So it's just, you know, the most natural way. But like I said, it really doesn't have to be leveled up to a certain either riser or the string. But
As long as that's level.
Yep, as long.
Perfectly perpendicular.
Yep, and that's the main thing. That's what a lot of people, you know, they get caught up in that. They're like, oh man, I have to have this bar exactly, you know, parallel with my string or exactly parallel with my riser, and which one do I use? And that's really not the case. I mean, you really don't have to have it, you know, set to any certain one.
So it's set up to their natural count. It'll be easier
Yep.
for them.
Yep.
You set to your natural count when you shoot tournament situations.
I do, yep, and I have a slight of a, you know, a little bit of a right natural cant. So, yep, and I set it up with that, and if I didn't do that, you know, I would just be fighting it all the time, so. Yep.
Thanks.
Sure.
Next question. Yes, sir.
What's the object that has your bar slid all the way in or slid all the way out on the target side? Like 3D. What's the advantage?
There are advantages to having your target sight slid all the way out or all the way in was the question, and I'll let Dan answer it.
I guess really, yes, there are some focal advantages or disadvantages. I think, don't quote me on it, but I want to say most diopters or your lenses are, their focal point is at somewhere around a meter, isn't it? 36 inches. So, you know, the closer to that 36 inches that you are, the actual true power that you're going to get out of your scope. Not that that's really important, because you can go up a power if you want to shoot it in a little bit closer. Generally, the other reason you'll adjust it in or out is for peep size. If you're trying to get your housing to properly match the hole size of your peep. But that's going to change in lighting situations. Really bright light outside, you're going to notice your peep's going to seem extremely small. So you want to take that into consideration if you're setting your sight distance, you know, and you're doing it inside and you get it perfect, and then you go outside and it's like you can't even see your bubble because the light restricts, you know, what you can actually see for your sight picture. The third reason that I would say people would adjust it is what's considered torque tuning, and I'm sure you do a lot of that. But you know, generally you can find what I found, and I'm not even really sure why it works or or I've really banged my head against the wall trying to figure out the physics behind it, the dynamics behind what's actually taking place with torque tuning, because it should really be the opposite of what happens. But there seems to be some sort of a correlation between the distance of your, like the blade tips of your rest or whatever you're using for a rest, and that sight distance. So sometimes you could find actually purposely standing there and torquing your bow a little bit to the right, fire an arrow, previously sighted that you're sighted in, torque your bow a little to the right, fire an arrow, torque your bow a little bit to the left, fire an arrow. And by moving that sight in and out, you can generally tighten that gap. So you'll end up with your right impact a little less and your left impact a little less. And then also by moving your rest in and out, you can tighten that up a little bit more. And then you'll end up being actually able to fire an improper shot and still hit really good line. So those are really probably what I'd say the three main reasons for moving it in and out or finding where you want to be.
Does it give you a tighter sight tape at a further distance? Or?
Yeah, I mean, if you have trouble seeing or something, I guess you could move it all the way out, which would expand your sight tape gap, maybe make it easier to set those half-yard increments. But it's all linear, so you're going to have a smaller sight tape if you're way in, but you're not actually going to be shooting any flatter. And your arrow trajectory is the same, physics is the same, the arrow drop's the same. You're just basically, as you expand that out, your pin gap or the actual sight tape is going to be longer. But it really just gives you a chance to be a little more accurate setting in. But I would never move it out to take the advantage of being more accurate setting it if I didn't see an advantage as far as the torque tuning side of it, which is what I mainly pay attention to. And then I'll pick my peep sight to fit my housing at that distance.
Next question? Yes, sir.
Thoughts on static axis leveling versus full draw to shooting machine?
Who wants to tackle that? Static leveling as opposed to shooting machine.
I wouldn't do either, really. I mean, static leveling might get you close as far as using some sort of a device. I think there's several companies that make a mounting bracket that you can throw it on there and quickly level your first, second, and third. And then off of a shooting machine, sure, I mean, it's level off the shooting machine, but it's not really level how you hold it. And there's a lot of other things that come into play, personal hand torque, your sidebar. When you go to set your third axis downhill or something, and you've got 22 ounces out on your left V-bar or something, and you aim that downhill, I mean, it's going to put some torque on your riser. So really any third axis adjustment, I would say shoot it in. First axis adjustment and stuff too. Statically, I guess it's good to set your first and your second to make sure they're perfectly 90, but then after that, you should shoot it in and set it from there.
Next question? Yes.
You have a video where you show leveling, and you use several devices. You use a bench vise.
Yep.
Not sure if that's something that's AXCEL brand or anything, but you also use a hamski. You used it in the one video, and you do a little bit of
Right.
leveling just by pulling the bow, aiming up and down with
Sure.
the hamski at the end.
Yep. And
Seems like that video you put out covers the whole spectrum
right.
for a general setting.
Yes.
Would that be all? Are those devices that you show in that video, is that something AXCEL sells?
We actually do not manufacture a leveling device. However, there are several, on the market from other companies that are very good. And in the video, I have produced some videos showing basic first, second, third axis leveling, and that's what the gentleman is asking a question about. And in that video, you'll see me using a leveling device that's on a bench, and the leveling device is leveled to the bench, and then in turn holds the bow while I set first, second, and third axis. It allows the bow to set perfectly perpendicular to the ground, and then it also has a lever to where you can actually can it forward, back to set your third axis, and so on and so forth. But I always, personally, because I do shoot 3D, that is the majority of my shooting, our third axis leveling is very important. So I additionally, use other means to check it again, or to check it at full draw, or, to set the natural cants or whatever I need to do. So the more methods that you can use to prove that you set your first, second, and third axis correctly, I urge you to do that, because like Dan had mentioned in the beginning, I've seen level bubbles be off, and it's easy to and it happens all the time, and quality of level bubbles is very important. So in turn, you want to find the highest quality from the best manufacturers you can find if you're very serious about it. And in doing so, I've had, you had mentioned the Hamsky leveling device, which is done majority at full draw, and I've seen level bubbles in those be great, and I've seen them in there be bad. So you got to kind of see what you're doing, and it's easy for me to say that because we have all the tools to check those. We have the granite tables, and we can look at them real easy at our facility and easily distinguish, well, that one's good, that one's bad, whatever. So, but I do urge you, and I do it all the time, you'll see in the video, multiple ways of setting your third and or first, second, and third axis, and then checking it with another device, at full draw, or whatever you need to do, whether it's another, bench vise, or another bubble. Maybe, have a couple different level bubbles. And I've used the same medicine stone leveling bubbles for numerous years. I don't even think they're even around nowadays, but the bubbles that I got from them years ago, I've carried on and on and on, and they seem to be very good, in checking them. But don't always trust the level bubble, even if you're just, setting a doorway in your house from Lowe's or whatever. It's going to be close, but, we've seen them pretty bad. So, next question? Yes, sir.
What is the advantage, the pins, fronts of the lens or back of the lens?
Okay, Reo? Is there an advantage or a disadvantage to having the pin in front of the lens or behind the lens?
I prefer mine in front so that the magnification is not anything distorting it, and usually another part is it's inside there, so it gets protected if you have a dot or something else, it doesn't get wet. Because if you put the aperture or something on the outside of the lens, you end up getting a little distortion from the lens itself. And so preferably on the inside so your natural vision sees it, and then the lens magnifies the target, which is what you're trying to get to do something like that.
Next question.
Was he asking about pin distortion, or was he talking about like?
Is there an advantage of having the pin? Is there an advantage to having the pin in front or behind the lens? Yes, sir.
How critical is your level in shooting indoors, like in indoor shoots?
Okay.
How critical is
So
that?
you're saying like at a 20-yard tournament?
Right.
How important is having the bubble correct? Okay, Jesse.
It's definitely something I pay attention to, but it's not really that critical. I mean, at 20 yards, I can be sighted in and cant my bow a full bubble off, and probably be really close to still catching the baby X. Definitely still be a 10. So it's not really that critical inside, but once again, when you're trying to be the most accurate you can be, I mean you use everything that that you can. So it's definitely a lot more critical outside, and definitely the third axis is very important too, and one of the things a lot of people don't understand. So like shooting out of a tree stand or up and down hills, I mean people just don't understand how to set it, and then they try to set it statically, and it doesn't work out. Like these guys already covered you. I mean, I pretty much feel that you have to go out there and shoot it in, for yourself to make sure that it's on.
Next question. We've got about 5 minutes left. In closing, like I had mentioned earlier, please come back and join us tomorrow. We'll have some more information on release aids. And, Jesse is releasing some signature series releases here at the show. So be sure and check those out. We've worked with him for the last, probably the last year on fine-tuning some release aids for him. Reo has a signature series. All the guys will be in the booth in and out throughout the rest of the week. We're going to have an autograph signing session after tomorrow's seminar. I've also got some sheets with all 4 of the guys on the back as you're going out the door. Feel free to grab one. And I've got some markers up here if you want them to sign the pictures. I've also got all of our site products up here, so feel free to come up and handle them. I think the show is going to be opening very soon if it hasn't already. So there's plenty more there for you to come and check out as far as all of our sites, Target, hybrid style, multi-pin. So once again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoyed some of the information the guys have shared with you today.